There is a demon immortal pavilion in the mountains and 3 men are standing and there is a table and 2 are standing together while 1 is standing behind the table. One of them asks him that Sohan, must you leave? He replies with yes. His name is Jin Sohan, one of the 4 great demons. Venom demon says to Sohan that it's been 10 years since you came here. Do you think the sword dance troupe you were in still exists? Venom demon's twin immortal physician is also standing beside him and he says to Sohan that like the Venom demon said, the sword dance troupe is probably no longer around because the unorthodox sects won't leave them be. He replies, there's a high chance that that's what happened. Venom demon asks him that if you already know that, then why would you bother looking for a group that might not exist? Sohan replies that the sword dance troupe took me in as an orphan and I spent 14 years with them. I'll repay their kindness and all grudges if there are any. Venom smirks and asks repay grudges. He also says that I remember telling you that your martial arts aren't complete yet. Are you sure you want to do that in your current state? He replies that just as you've said, my martial arts aren't complete yet, but I'm still a disciple of the Venom demon and immortal physician. So what do I have to fear? Venom demon smiles and says that you sure are good at talking. Venom demon asks to immortal physician that isn't that so. He replies that that's not surprising. This kid has always been good with words. We expected this too, didn't we? Let's not stop him anymore. Placing a covered blade on the table, Venom demon says to Sohan that take this with you. He looks at him and is surprised to see and says that isn't this the dual crescent blade that you used? I can't accept this. He replies that take it. I've got no use for it anymore and it's been a long time since it was used. Immortal physician then offers him a white hand fan saying that I'll give you this then. Take this with you and it'll definitely be of help to you on your journey. He is looking at those 2 things that are lying on the table. Immortal says to him that Sohan, the Jianghu is a dangerous place. It's one where even the strong can fall and bear in mind that you need to always be careful and plan your moves carefully. Sohan replies that yes master, I'll make sure to do that. Immortal says go on. We won't be sending you off. We'll wait to hear of your great deeds when rumors of it spread within the Jianghu. Both of them leave and now he is standing alone in the pavilion and a cool breeze is blowing. His hair and clothes are also moving in the air. He has beautiful blue eyes. He is standing in the pavilion, looking at the sky. He moves his fingers in a specific pattern and makes a punch with one hand holding it in the other and bows down saying thank you for everything. The blade and white fan are lying on the table before him. Cool breeze is blowing throughout the village. Sohan reaches Eastern Dark Street. He is wearing a hat. He is standing at the door of the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. He is also wearing a backpack. Looking at the door, he says to himself that this was where the sword dance troupe was at. He remembers about his childhood memories when he was with her mother. He can hear the giggles and laughs and when his mother asked her that what do you want to eat? And when she said to him that stop right there, Sohan. When she asked him that Sohan, how's my sword dance and he replied that it's really cool. When father asked him that are you hungry and he replied yes. While remembering about those beautiful memories, he's thinking about those people that I wonder if everyone's fine. Where did they all go? Looking at the surroundings he's wondering that the surroundings have changed too. He looks at a place and is trying to figure out that Creston is the only place that's still here. I'll go ask around in that inn for now. He goes to that place. Everyone is busy gossiping and talking. Different tables and chairs are present. People are sitting, busy talking, glancing at the interior of the place. He is wondering that the interior hasn't changed at all. I wonder if the owner is still the same one. He goes inside but everyone is watching at him with strange eyes. He is walking between the rows of the people with his head down. He sits on one chair and removes his hat. He feels that everyone is watching him. They all look strange. He looks at them. Looking at those people he smiles a little wondering that the intense atmosphere is still the same. He places his hat on the table. A waiter comes to him and welcomes him warmly and says that welcome. What may I serve you? Hearing his voice, he is wondering that he knows him. He's thinking that Dogon. I'm sure his name is Dogon. The waiter is confused at his judgment and Sohan is thinking that judging by his expressions, it seems like he doesn't recognize me. Sohan orders 1 chicken comb noodles. The waiter replies understood. Meanwhile in his head, he's thinking that judging by his clothes, he seems to be an outsider. The waiter is worried because of the situation and thinking that looks like there'll be a big fight soon and I hope they take it outside though. A group of 3 people is sitting at a table. One of them calls him saying that a black outfit with a black sheath. Do you know what that means? The other says that. There's no way that you don't know that black means challenging others in this place though. Sohan is wondering that what's going on here and replies politely that I forgot about that. I don't mean anything by wearing this and it's the only set of clothes that I have so I hope you will be understanding. They are all angry and one of them says to him that arrogant bastard. Look us in the eyes while replying. The other with the brown eyes says forget it. He asks Sohan so that means you wore black here despite knowing what it meant. What are you doing here? While holding a glass in his hand, Sohan replies that I don't particularly have a reason. I'm simply visiting my hometown after a long time. One of them asks your hometown. He also says that I've never seen you here before though. Where did you live? Sohan replies that I grew up opposite Crest Inn. He asks that you mean the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. What? You were born in brothel. He smirks and says you don't look like it though. The other man with him says that arrogant prick. How dare you act that way despite coming from a brothel? They are making fun of him but he replies politely that while the Lunar Dusk Pavilion is in that place right now, it used to be where the Mystic Lunar Dance Troupe was. That brown-eyed man replies that the Mystic Lunar Dance Troupe. Are you talking about the Mystic Lunar Entertainment Troupe? Sohan replies it's not an entertainment troupe. It's the Mystic Lunar Dance Troupe. They are all looking at him. One of them says that the sword dance troupe is basically an entertainment troupe so why make such a big fuss? In any case it's been a while since I heard that name. The other man with him replies that yeah, I still think about them from time to time. Sohan asks from them that do you know the sword dance troupe? That man smiles and says that of course. I don't just know them, I even miss them, now that you've mentioned them. Sohan looks at him and says that's great, I'll treat you to a drink. That man asks that you want to buy me a drink, pointing at a chair near him. Sohan says yes please take a seat, offering him a seat. He gives order saying 1 bottle of dew wine here please. Meanwhile on their table, the one guy says to him that brother there's no need to do this, leave it be. That brown-eyed guy takes his weapon with him and gets up from his chair saying that he wants to buy me a drink. It's not right of me to reject it since we're of the Jianghu. He goes and sits with Sohan. Placing his weapon at the side, Sohan casts a look at his weapon while looking at him. That man is wondering that he's unfazed despite seeing my weapon. What's with this confidence he has? Is he someone who has a backer? In that case robbing him would make things complicated. He is sitting cross-armed and asks a question from Sohan that where are you from? It seems like you're a disciple from a pretty well-established sect. Sohan replies that I don't belong to any sects and I don't really belong to any groups either. Touching his beard, he smiles mockingly and wonders that he doesn't belong to any sects or groups. Is he just a mere vagrant? This is awesome. He is sitting with his one leg over the other and says loudly to Dogon that Dogon, what are you doing? Bring the wine over quickly. Dogon replies that yes sir I'm on my way. Sohan is thinking that he really is Dogon. Dogon brings drink in 2 glasses in a tray and serves them. Pouring a drink in his glass Sohan says to that man have a drink please. Think of this as the price for talking with me. He asks price for talking. What do you want to talk about? Sohan replies I'd like to hear about the sword dance troupe. He is holding a glass of wine in his hand and takes a sip from it. Drinking wine, he asks sword dance troupe. Why do you want to hear about them? Pouring the drink in his glass, he says that after all we were famous on the Eastern Dark Street. Naturally I am curious since they are not here anymore. The man smashes the glass on the table and says that seeing as how you know about stuff like that you really must be from here. The Mystic Lunar Dance Troupe. It's really been a while since I've heard that name. Do you know about the Revolving Blood Clan too? Sohan replies that yes I do. Sohan's thinking that the Revolving Blood Clan was one of the sects that acted up in this region. The man tells him that 10 years ago the Revolving Blood Clan tried to lay their hands upon the sword dance troupe. You know about how the women of the sword dance troupe were known to be beautiful right? Right. The Revolving Blood Clan rules over the Eastern Dark Street now but this wasn't the case back then. The sword dance troupe hung on doggedly but the Revolving Blood Clan created an excuse to attack the sword dance troupe. They tried to frame the sword dance troupe for poisoning one of their own to death. That's how they started fighting and the sword dance troupe fell in the end. Sohan replies that if. So what about the people of the sword dance troupe? Did they all die back then? The man replies that no the Revolving Blood Clan's leader dragged the woman that he had his eyes on over to the Revolving Blood Clan. Although I don't know if they are still alive now. Sohan is thinking deeply about the Revolving Blood Clan. That man is trying to figure out that what happened to that boy suddenly and says to himself that this fellow. Something about him just changed. I think it's best for me to leave him alone. Thinking this he says to him that I've finished finished my drink, it's time for me to take my leave. He stands up from his chair and was about to leave when he said to him that wait a minute. He asks him that are you from the revolving blood clan? Three of them looked at him with shock. The one with the gray hair and brown eyes asks what? That man with brown eyes is thinking that this punk, is he related to that incident? He gets confused and starts to sweat and says to him that I don't know what you're talking about. None of us here are from the revolving blood clan. That brown-eyed man's fellow gets up from their chairs and that brown-haired one says to him that brother what are you doing right now? He replies that Jaegwang you don't have the right to speak here. Jaegwang is infuriated at Sohan's behavior and asks that how can I not interfere when that arrogant bastard is acting up. He is confused at his behavior while Jaegwang says to Sohan that look here I know some stuff about the sword dance troupe too. Hearing this, that man is shocked and worried that he was about to reveal the truth but he does not listen to him and Sohan asks him a question that do you know who Dieng is? That man is angry and shouts saying shut that mouth of yours but he doesn't stop and continues saying to Sohan that she didn't get caught up in that incident because she was out that day and thanks to that we were able to bring her to a quiet place. The brown-eyed man is extremely angry at him and gets up from his chair in such anger that his chair falls down on the floor and says with anger that I said shut that mouth of yours. His bald fellow asks him big brother why have you been acting like this and the other asks him that don't tell me you're scared of that guy. He replies to them that just keep your mouths shut you bastards, let's talk later for now. Sohan calls that girl's name while he was pouring a wine in his glass and says that Duyang, she was really a beautiful older sister of mine. He looks at Sohan with confused expressions while Jaegwang smiles and says to him that you know here she's quite beautiful. Just like you said and that bald man with him says that the women that the revolving blood clan's leader dragged away were more beautiful though. Sohan is pouring a wine in a glass and that man is looking at the drop of wine dripping from the bottle into the glass and as soon as drop is about to fall into the cup that man is thinking that something's ominous about that guy and says to him hey and ponders that he is too ominous. As the drop falls into the wine in the glass few drops come out of wine in the air and that man says to Sohan that these guys are just drunk and talking nonsense. One of them replies that big brother what are you talking about we haven't drunk any alcohol today. He feels that something bad is going to happen and his eyes are full of fear and worry. He is standing at his place while something suddenly hits both of them in their heads and their blood drops falls on his back so he looks behind him and is stunned to see them lying on the floor half dead with the chopsticks in their heads and their mouth opened and Sohan is sitting at his place on his chair in the dark. That man looks at his friends and says chopsticks meanwhile he was worried about them he feels something in his belly as he looks at it. It was his weapon which Sohan threw at him and blood is coming out from that and he immediately falls on the ground. Sohan is holding a glass of wine while remembering about the past memory when Venom Demon said to him that Sohan do you think that the sword dance troupe you were previously in still exists? While remembering this Sohan closes his hand and hits with his fist on the table. He is infuriated and his eye color changes from blue to purple and he says damn unorthodox bastard. All of them are lying dead on the floor and the blood is coming out from their bodies while Sohan is sitting peacefully on the chair. Meanwhile Dogon comes and looks at their bodies. Standing there he is sad and thinking that Jechiel and his clique simply died helplessly and he looks at Sohan assuming that he would have died and says to himself that I thought he would have lost. Sohan looks at him and calls his name Dogon while Dogon is shocked to hear his name and asks pardon, do you need anything? Dogon is standing before him in full confusion and fear. Sohan smiles a little and his eyes have transformed to their normal color and Dogon says to him that come on you still don't recognize me? Dogon is confused at his question and asks sorry meanwhile in his head he's thinking about him that I don't recognize him. Do I know him and I doubt I forget someone who looks so eye-catching though. Sohan smiles and telling him to wait he shows him his childhood's face and as Dogon sees his face, he asks that are you sleepyhead? I forget someone who looks so eye-catching though. Sohan smiles and telling him to wait he shows him his childhood's face and as Dogon sees his face, he asks that are you sleepyhead? Sohan replies that yeah that's what people used to call me because I was sleeping all the time. Dogon is happy to see him and says that I can't believe you've changed so much where were you all this time? We thought you had died because you suddenly disappeared why did you disappear without a word and what have you been doing? Sohan is a bit confused at his questions and thinking about Venom Demon and his twin he says to himself that I suffered hell I was kidnapped by my two masters they were fascinated with my body which is immune to poisons and they experimented on me in various ways. He thinks about his masters that how they tested his body's immune system against the poisons by letting him sit in the poison pot and by placing poisons on his different body parts. Thinking about all this he says to Dogon that well I did various things and Dogon replies that is that so whatever it was I'm glad you're alive the sword dance troupe looked all over for you all over when you suddenly disappeared and Sohan asks that the sword dance troupe looked for me. Dogon replies that of course they searched high and low for you and they looked for you whenever they could before the sword dance troupe was destroyed. They worried about you. Looking at his facial expressions Dogon assumed that he is angry and his eye color is changing so he hurriedly said sorry and Sohan looks at Jechiel's body that is lying on the floor and asks him that Dogon was what they said true? The things about the sword dance troupe. Dogon replies yeah, they're all true and hearing this Sohan closes his eyes with utter sadness and he puts his hand in the pocket of his coat and takes out money and says to Dogon that I need to get going now this is for the food. Dogon is stunned to see that huge amount and asks him why are you giving me so much money? Looking at the bodies of Jechiel and his friend Sohan says that please help to clean up this place and Dogon replies with bit worry that alright don't worry as you already know this is pretty common in this place and Sohan replies with thanks see you around. He was about to leave when Dogon asks him that it's already late though you're leaving now where are you going to sleep? Sohan replies that at the Lunar Dusk Pavilion while Dogon is shocked to hear that he asks what the revolving blood clan looks after that place. Sohan replies that all the more reason I have to go there then and I need to pat them back for what they did to the sword dance troupe. Dogon is worried about him after he comes to know about his intentions and says that it's impossible for you to do it alone the revolving blood clan is untouched on the eastern dark street. Sohan asks him that Dogon do you remember the sword dance I used to practice a lot because of performances. Dogon starts remembering about that and says of course I do it's because you were so young but you never missed out on a day of training why are you asking so suddenly? Placing his hand at the door of the hotel he looks at him and says that I'll show you that sword dance after I've taken care of the revolving blood clan thanks for worrying about me let's meet again and Dogon smiles and says that alright come back anytime I'll always be here and Sohan replies with okay and leaves that place. The two people are standing at the door of the Lunar Dusk Pavilion meanwhile Sohan comes to them in full white clothes and has a white fan in his hand. He is looking very handsome and one of them welcomes him saying welcome may I know if there's anyone that you're looking for specifically? Sohan replies that I heard Chao Yakran and Wonhai are all quite decent but the man is confused at his answer and says pardon none of the ladies go by those names though. Hearing his answer Sohan is wondering that seeing as how he doesn't know their names are they not here and thinking this, he says to him that I'll just get other ladies if they aren't here and he welcomes him saying that please head inside first the performance is just about to get interesting. Sohan asks about performance and he replies yes. The man takes him to inside where people are performing and producing the music with different musical instruments and the audience is clapping and enjoying the performance. The man tells him about the Lunar Dusk Pavilion's famous dance Lunar Dusk Dance Troupe while Sohan is hearing unattentively but when he hears about the Lunar Dusk Dance Troupe he becomes attentive and is trying to figure out his words. The two beautiful women are performing a dance, they are wearing beautiful clothes. One is wearing pink clothes and other is wearing light blue dress and they have swords in their hands. They are performing a specific type of dance and are performing together on the stage. Sohan looks at their dance and wondering that are they imitating the performance of the sword dance troupe with those lousy abilities of theirs? A man comes and says to him that sir that person is the Lunar Dusk Pavilion's owner please refrain from staring at him like that. Hearing this Sohan asks that guy is the Lunar Dusk Pavilion's owner and he replies that yes so please refrain from staring at him so openly. Hearing this he stares at the Lunar Dusk Pavilion's owner once again and starts heading towards some place while that man looks at him and says that sir that's not where you're supposed to go. The two guards are standing there and as they see him heading towards them one of them stops him with his hand and says that stop right here you can't go up here but Sohan replies that I came to meet with the pavilion owner. That man asks that the pavilion owner did you make an appointment with him? Sohan replies with no and the man is shocked at this and asks that do you think he's someone that anyone can just meet as they please? Lunar Dusk Pavilion's Phantom Sword Squad Captain Chu Sayak is coming downstairs and asks what's the commotion about. He is holding a little weapon in his hand and is wearing brown clothes. The man says to him that this person wants to meet with the pavilion owner but he hasn't made an appointment. The man is a little bit confused and asks rudely that he wants to meet the pavilion owner. Sohan is looking at him with full confidence and that man is also looking at him and after a while he says to him that just go back home if you're drunk if you don't want to die from creating a commotion that is but Sohan replies to him that is it's so hard to meet with the pavilion owner for a while. That man looks at him with anger and calls him bastard while the pavilion owner was looking at them standing there and says to Captain that forget it there's no need to kick up a fuss, let him meet me since he's here to do that and orders that send him to my room so that man replies with yes sir. Passing through the corridor Sohan is walking behind the captain and the long rows of men are standing on each side of the corridor and they are standing in still positions as statues. That man takes him to the owner's room where owner is sitting with two girls by his sides and the food is served on the table and they are standing in front of him and he says to owner that I brought him here. Sohan without taking any permission goes with full arrogance and sits on a bench while the owner is wondering that just why the hell is he so arrogant. I agreed to meet him since he seemed different. Is he from a renowned martial sect or a renowned clan? And thinking this he says to him that I'm not sure why you're here to look for me but let's have a drink while we talk. The woman with pink clothes sits by his side and serves him wine and he was taking a glass from the table when the owner says here and they start drinking wine. While drinking wine he looks at Sohan and thinking about him, that fool, I can't believe you drank wine that's given to you without any suspicions. Is he just a kid that doesn't know how the world works? I guess I was worried over nothing. After drinking wine, he put the glass on the table. As soon as he put that glass, after finishing the drink his eyes turned into purple color, so he wonders about them that these bastards they poisoned the wine. The poison starts to spread in his chest and his body color starts to change into purple. The pavilion owner smirks and asks him that how is it, do you like it? But Sohan also smiles and replies nicely that it's decent and also says that it's so good I'd like to have another cup. That man smiles cunningly and says to him that you know your wine, have one more cup, but in his mind, he was thinking that he truly is a foolish one. The girl in green and white clothes serves him another glass of wine while he asks him that so you're here to look for me, why are you here? He is asking questions while Sohan is busy drinking another glass of wine and after drinking he is holding a glass in his hand and replies that why else? Of course it's because I've got business with you. Looking at him the owner is thinking that how arrogant for someone who's about to die. Bowing his head down he says to him before that let's get something straight. In saying this, he says to him with his poison purple eyes that you dare poison the wine while the owner is wondering that how did he know there's poison when it's supposed to be colorless and odorless. Well, since he's already drank it it's too late for him even if he's realized it anyways. He laughs and asks that how did you find that and Sohan replies with full attitude that how would I not know since I've tasted it. He looks at him with full anger and calls him arrogant bastard and thinking that now that he's drank the poison, he wouldn't be able to last long. He looks at him and orders the girl to leave the room and she replies with yes pavilion owner. Both of them get up and leaves the room and now joining his hands finger together he says to him that I hope you understand I need to be careful since a stranger suddenly wants to meet me you don't need to be worried, I might give you the antidote depending on how you behave. Sohan smiles and says that I don't need the stupid antidote but he asks him that you don't need the antidote, stop this useless act of yours, that attitude of yours isn't helping you in this situation. Placing his one hand on his leg Sohan replies that acting my ass now then is it my turn to make a move saying this his eyes became red. The owner is confused and says what? Saying this Sohan stands up from his place and his shadow can be seen. Suddenly someone falls on the ground and owner is shocked to hear the noises coming from the outside and asks that what's this? The other man also asks that what happened outside but suddenly something starts to stuck in his throat and he holds his neck with his hand and his body turns into purple color while looking at him the owner asks that Chu Sayak what the hell just happened. Chu Sayak's eyes turns red and white liquid is coming out from his mouth and he says that it's poison and the owner is stunned to hear this and asks poison? What nonsense is that we're the ones that poisoned him. Saying this he also falls on the ground and the white liquid is also coming out from his mouth. Meanwhile Sohan is sitting peacefully with his red eyes and has a fan in his hand and says to them that I'm the one who released the poison. The owner asks what did you say? He replies please understand I too need to be careful when I'm meeting a stranger don't I? He is sitting with his one leg over the other and everyone else in the corridor is also dead. Purple light disappears and his eye color also changes. He is holding a white fan in his hand that a mortal physician gave him. Meanwhile the white liquid is coming out from the mouth of the owner. And thinking that when the hell did he use poison and his eyes are turning red. Sohan closes the white fan putting it in his pocket and stands up from his place. When the owner says to him that wait a minute, what's the reason for doing this? I've never met you before so what grudge do you have against me? So Sohan replies to his question that you're the one who tried to poison me first. He is standing while the owner is on the floor looking at his feet, so Sohan bows down to talk to him and says that if you got caught trying to poison me then you need to die, am I wrong? His eyes turn to purple again and the owner is looking at him with his red eyes and says to him that if you kill me do you think the revolving blood clan will let you go? Hearing this Sohan asks him that the revolving blood clan? And he replies to him that yeah, I belong to the revolving blood clan, and so does the lunar dusk pavilion. If you stand down now I won't tell the revolving blood clan about this matter, what do you think? And Sohan is thinking about his question. While looking at him the owner is thinking that he looks like he came to a foreign land to create trouble without knowing anything. I'm sure he wouldn't dare to move recklessly after hearing about the revolving blood clan. As he is thinking this, Sohan says to him that the mystic lunar dance troupe. It's a name you haven't heard in a while, right? The owner is wondering that why is he suddenly mentioning the mystic lunar dance troupe. But Sohan's eyes changes their color to pink and says to the owner that the sword dance troupe was originally located here before the lunar dusk pavilion came along. Sohan is standing before the owner but the captain is lying behind him and is looking at them and gets up holding his sword in his hand thinking that this is my chance while he's not paying attention to me, and thinking this, he points his weapon towards him but Sohan looks at him with a side eye and places his hand on his weapon which he has tied with his waist. As he touches his sword the captain cannot even move his hand and thinking that what was with that impact he didn't even pull out his weapon. I thought he wasn't paying attention to me in the first place, he's a martial master that I'm no match for even if I want to attack him again if I make any reckless moves. And Sohan says to him that was a pretty good attack but if you attack me again it won't end the same way anymore. Chu Sayak is wondering that pretty good attack. Damn it, I'm totally being looked down upon. Meanwhile Sohan is talking to him, the owner finds the situation pretty favorable and takes out his sword to attack on him but seeing him Sayak is thinking about his but owner is thinking that great job Chu Sayak, thanks to you I see an opening. Thinking this he points a knife towards him saying I'll finish this. The same purple light starts coming out from Sohan's body and his dress start to flip in the air and the owner's body become blue all of a sudden and blood comes out from his mouth and body and he says that how could this be? Saying this he falls on the floor in upside position and Sohan and Chu Sayak are looking at him and Sayak is both confused and worried at the same time while Sohan looks at him and asks him that did you say your name was Chu Sayak, if you want to become like him then attack me again. So he replies that I won't attack you. And Sohan replies that well if you say so. Chu Sayak is standing behind him and Sohan again sits back on his place while Sayak is looking at him thinking that we should have known that we're no match for him when the poison didn't work and there's that brazen behavior and rude tone. He's more like a villain than someone of the orthodox sections. The owner of the pavilion is lying dead on the floor between both of them. Sohan is sitting while Sayak is standing before him and Sohan says to him that as of this moment I'm taking over the lunar dusk pavilion, I'll need your cooperation for a peaceful takeover, right? And Sayak replies to his question by saying will you spare me? He replies that depends on what you do. He asks him that what do I need to do? His eyes turn back to their normal color and he says to him that say that you'll do anything that I say. Sayak is a bit confused at this and says to him understood. And Sohan replies that but we'll have to take care of when you tried ambushing me from behind. Saying this he takes out something like a little blue ball and throws it towards him which he catches with his one hand and Sohan orders him to eat that. Sayak looks at him and asks what is this? And Sohan replies that what else, of course it's a poison, how am I supposed to trust you? Sayak is looking at the pill in his hand and is thinking that damn it if I don't eat this now I'll be killed on the spot. And looks at Sohan and saying damn it, he eats that pill and swallows it while Sohan looking at him says to him that the revolving blood clan won't be able to make an antidote for that poison so it'd be best if you behave. And he replies obediently that I understand. Sohan points at the table says to him that so that's the hand over the keys. Sayak replies and asks that pardon what keys? Sohan replies to him that since there's an auction place within here, I'm sure there's a storage room where you keep the item rights, the vault storage place where elixirs are kept, place where weapons are kept, secret storage and everything that belongs to the pavilion owner. Hearing this he replies with yes sir but thinking in his head that is he taking over the lunar dusk pavilion for the money? And thinking this he hands over the keys to him saying here it is. Sohan takes the keys and says to him that I'll go take a quick look, clean up this place in the meantime. And he replies with yes sir. He was about to leave when Sayak asks him that excuse me but how should I address you? And Sohan replies that mystic lunar troop leader but you can just call me troop leader. He leaves that room while he is standing at the door and says yes troop leader. While he is passing through the corridor, he sees that the men who were standing in the corridor who were lying on the floor are trying to get up, so Sayak says to them that what are you all doing, get a grip and clean this place up quickly. Since he's taken over this place, make sure you treat him as the owner. And they all reply to him, yes sir. Sohan goes to that room where the items for auction are kept and stored, and he while looking at all those items thinking that these items are all up for the auction, all this rubbish, they've messed with the auction items. And while looking at this place and items, he sees something and looks at them and figures out that it is century-old tuber fleece flower. And one flower in his hand, he says to himself that it's a low-grade item, but it's still useful to a certain extent. It's better than nothing, so I'll consume this, and saying this he leaves that room. In the next morning in the lunar dusk pavilion, he is sitting in his room and is sitting cross-legged and joining hands together. He is in deep meditation and his eyes are closed while someone comes at his door and says from outside that troop leader, are you awake? So he replies that yes, come in. Chu Sayak enters in the room but his eyes are still closed and he is meditating while Sayak is standing quietly and looking at him, and Sohan asks him that how many days would it take for the revolving blood clan to realize what was happened here. Sayak replies that they'll probably know in 2 or 3 days. So Sohan says to him that 2 or 3 days, gather all the employees and tell them this, all those who have a place to return to and those who want to quit can leave, no strings attached. Sayak is shocked to hear this and asks pardon while he is thinking in his head that why would he disband the lunar dusk pavilion after all the effort he put in to take over it. If he does that while he was busy in summing up his thoughts, Sohan says to him that send at least 10 times of their salary to those who have a place to return to. But Sayak is stunned to hear this and says to him that 10 times in order to give that much money will need to use the revolving blood clan's money. Hearing this, Sohan opens his eyes and asks revolving blood clan's money? And he replies that yes sir, the revolving blood clan has placed the funds in various places and the lunar dusk pavilion is taking care of quite a bit of those funds. As Sohan hears this, he smiles and says that's even better. If it's the revolving blood clan's money, then all the more it needs to be used. Send 20 times the salary instead. Sayak is shocked to hear that and asks pardon. After his orders, everyone in the lunar dusk pavilion is packing their stuff and leaving that place, and they're busy in their packing when one says to the other, let's go quickly, and the other replies, all right. They all pack their stuff, and now they are leaving. While he is looking at them standing, Sayak is standing behind him. He asks him, did you get everything I asked for? He replies, yes, sir, and as you've instructed, I've asked my subordinates to escort them until they're in a safe place. Sohan is looking at the people who are leaving the pavilion while Sayak continues, saying that among them, there are probably people reporting the situation to the revolving blood clan, but Sohan replies, probably so. Sayak, while looking at him, is thinking that it feels like he's waiting for them to report to the revolving blood clan. He remembers last night when he was talking to the owner of the pavilion about the mystic dance troupe and said to him, it's the name you haven't heard in a while, right? The owner told him that the sword dance troupe was originally located here before the lunar dusk pavilion came along. Remembering all this, he says to Sohan, troop leader, the reason why you're doing this, is it related to the mystic lunar dance troupe? Sohan looks at him with a side eye and asks, how do you know that? He replies, that's because I heard your conversation with the dead pavilion owner. While looking at the dance stage, he says to Sayak, that's right, I grew up in the sword dance troupe. On hearing this, Sayak asks the reason for saying that, so Sohan replies that yeah, after the revolving blood clan took this place away from the sword dance troupe by force, they built the lunar dusk pavilion. Sayak is thinking, that's why he's here, he's trying to take revenge against the revolving blood clan who devoured the mystic lunar dance troupe. He asks him if there's anyone else who's with him in this, and he replies, no, I'm alone. He starts thinking about him, that crazy shit, he's going to fight the revolving blood clan alone. While he did win against the lunar dusk pavilion owner and me, I can't believe he's thinking of doing something ridiculous. He says to him, the revolving blood clan isn't something you can handle alone, but Sohan says, I can't believe they took over the eastern dark streets while I was away. They're probably pretty big. While listening to this, Sayak wonders, that's why he's underestimating the revolving blood clan too much. He says to him, troop leader, the revolving blood clan is managing 4 brothels, 3 martial halls, 2 merchant associations, and 2 escort establishments. The revolving blood clan can mobilize at least a few hundred people. Sohan, after hearing this, says, a few hundred people? I don't need to fight against all of them, especially for the unorthodox faction. I just need to take out some of the leaders, just like how I took over the lunar dusk pavilion. Hearing this, Sayak thinks that he is going to take out some of the leaders isn't underestimating the revolving blood clan's executives too much, and it looks like I might die quickly if I hang around him. Do I need to get the antidote by all means and try to escape? Sohan calls him, saying, Jew Sayak, and he replies, yes. He looks at him, but he's looking quite frightened. Sohan says to him, once your subordinates are back, you should leave too, but he is still shocked and says, pardon? Are you being serious? Sohan replies, yes, take tons of money for you and your subordinates when you guys leave. He remembers the last night when Sohan gave him poison and said to him, what else? Of course, it's poison. So he is angry at him and says to himself, this bastard, he should give me the antidote. Sohan looks at his face and asks, so what's the matter? You don't seem happy that I am letting you go. He replies, I need the antidote. Sohan is confused and asks, the antidote, and says to him, I forgot to tell you, if you don't take the antidote your limbs will melt in a few days. Hearing this, he is angry at his carelessness and says to himself, how can you forget? You fed me such a vicious poison, and you dare send me away like you were being nice and all. Vicious bastard. Sohan takes out the box from his pocket, and there are 2 antidote pills in that box. Looking at the box, he is thinking, the antidote. I can finally get rid of the poison. Thinking this, he takes out a pill from the box and eats it and feels a big relief. He wonders why Sohan is looking at him like that, so he says to him, what's wrong? Sohan replies, do you know what that is? Why did you just eat it? So he replies to him, what? Didn't you say this is the antidote? And Sohan asks, since when did I say that? After hearing this, he asks him, what did I just eat then? So he replies, poison. Sohan is also looking quite shocked at his behavior, and he shouts and says, what? I mean, why did you feed me poison? So he replies, I'm just showing you what the real poison looks like. What you ate first was a fake. His body starts turning blue, and while looking at him, Sohan says to him, you look like you are in your 40s and are a veteran in the Jianghu. But hearing this, he is thinking, this is ridiculous. I did all sorts of shit for him, but what I ate was a fake at first and he gave me poison instead of the antidote. Sohan sits on a chair, pours a drink in his glass, and starts drinking. He is looking at him and wondering, he's now drinking wine after tricking me. He is quite angry and infuriated. He also sits on a chair before him and says to him, please pour me 1 cup too. Sohan is still looking at him, so he says to him, what's wrong? Are you going to kill me because you don't want to pour me a drink? Since I am going to die of poison anyways, do as you please. But Sohan smiles and says, here, have a drink, and pours a drink in his glass, and he drinks it immediately and says to him, and I'll remain here instead of leaving. Sohan is shocked at this and asks, what? And then he replies, in any case, if a fight breaks out, they will kill me for not being able to protect the lunar dusk pavilion, but it's impossible for you to win against the revolving blood clan alone. If I am going to die anyways, I'll be more satisfied with my death if I get to see just how well you fight. But Sohan is looking at him quietly. So he says to him that please pour me another drink. Sohan smiles. So he asks him what? And he replies it's nothing and keeps pouring drink in his glass and says that let's just keep drinking. Also Sayak tell him that I am not in my 40s, I am 24 years old while he laughs and says what? In the revolving blood clan the people are sitting in a meeting room and there is a table and 2 rows are on each side of the table and 1 man is sitting at one end of the table and he says to them say that again, 1 man managed to take over the lunar dusk pavilion alone. So one of them replies yes sir. Then he says to them that just what the hell has the lunar dusk pavilion owner been doing for him to be defeated by 1 man? Is the opponent an incredible martial master? He is revolving blood clan leader. One of them says to the leader that there were reports that he used poison. Then he replies that poison that makes more sense. While another fat man from among them stands up and says that clan leader, I will lead the Razor Wind squad to take care of him. He is Razor Wind squad captain Young Gildo. The clan leader asks him you want to do this yourself? Then he replies yes sir. So the clan leader says that sure I could definitely trust you with this, if there's someone behind him then take care of them as well. He bows down before him and says yes I understand. Meanwhile in his head he is thinking that I have wanted to get my hands on a brothel. If I take care of this incident I could ask to manage the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. Sohan is walking through the city and enjoying eating dumplings while Sayak is walking behind him and has a bag of dumplings in his hand and is looking quite annoyed. Meanwhile Sohan asks him that one more. And he gives him one more dumpling. Meanwhile in his head he is thinking that I can't believe he's been enjoying himself so peacefully for a few days. Now the revolving blood clan should be making their move soon though how can he be so unprepared? While thinking this he hears someone saying get lost. And is thinking that who it is. It is the revolving blood clan. The people around are looking quite scared and Sayak says to Sohan that troop leader that's the revolving blood clan. So he replies that's the revolving blood clan. And he replies that yes they're the Razor Wind squad that belongs to the revolving blood clan. They're known to be pretty rough within the revolving blood clan. Seeing as how the Razor Wind squad captain is here personally it seems they've brought only their elites. Listening this Sohan says elites. Sayak says that based on the direction they're heading towards it seems they're heading straight for the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. But at hearing this he smiles and says in that case as its owner I ought to greet my guests. Let's go. And also says to him that do you still have more bintang, give me one more. Sayak is shocked and says what? The Razor Wind squad is moving towards the Lunar Duck Pavilion with his group members and the leader is holding a huge weapon in his hand and places it on his shoulder and also wearing a chain around his fat belly and says to his group members that bring that bastard here you mustn't let your guard down since he's someone who's capable of killing the Lunar Dusk Pavilion owner and one of them replies that yes sir. The Razor Wind squad's leader Young-gildo is a huge fat man and when he enters the other people starts running and he has big feet and he reaches the Lunar Dusk Pavilion and when he reaches there, he places his huge weapon on that floor and thinks that now that I've seen this place myself it's even better than I thought. If I take over this place, I'll definitely be able to earn quite a bit. He is standing wondering while his fellow members are examining the place thoroughly and after searching one of them says to him that Captain no one is here and the other also says to him same here which means the pavilion is empty. He's looking quite confused and asks his people that no one's here. One of them replies that exactly we've searched all over but no one's here while the other assumes that maybe he ran away. Listening to all this the captain replies that there's no way he'd hang around after messing with the revolving blood clan. He must have been in such a hurry he couldn't even take the money or item with him. Is that so? Meanwhile he's thinking that it doesn't matter. Well it's a pity I wasn't able to kill him with my own hands. What's important is the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. The squad is standing there when two people enters and they are Sohan and Sayak. They all looks at them and one of them says that who the hell is that get lost we are not open today while the other says that count yourself lucky if we had been in a bad mood today then you'd have at least lost an arm before we chased you away. But hearing this Sohan says that there's fewer than I thought. The same man asks what did you just say while the other says that didn't you hear me telling you to get lost. Young is looking at him and says to himself that don't tell me that bastard while Sohan says to Sayak who was standing behind him that close the doors and he replies immediately yes troop leader and runs quickly to close the doors. The squad leader smirks and says to him that it was you the bastard who brazenly made a mess in the Lunar Dusk Pavilion. I thought you had run away and everyone takes out their weapons. Then Sohan asks calmly that why would I do that? I'm here to eat. The squad leader smirks and says to him that fool you're here to throw your life away. You would have been better off if you had just run away. And with saying this, he orders his people saying get him. The people of his group on hearing this all get their weapons ready and run towards him. One of them reaches near him but he is standing quietly with his head down when suddenly his eyes turn to purple from blue color and he looks at them with side eye and purple light is also coming out from his body. When the one person attacks on him with his sword Sohan touches his elbow and as soon as he touches the elbow becomes red and swollen and then Sohan attacks on his side and throws him away and sees him with those purple eyes while everyone else is also moving towards him and he looking at them attacks on one person's leg and using his wonderful fighting skills attacks on others neck with his elbow and also uses his foot to kick. All of them are lying on the floor and coughing while blood is coming out of their mouths and those who are left along with the captain are looking at him and one of them says damn it and orders them that charge at him from all directions but he's standing there and he again uses his amazing skills and techniques and attacks on all of them at once and throws them away while the captain is still standing there and the blood is also coming out from the mouths of those whom he fought with. The captain and the Sayak both are looking at him with sudden shock and Sayak is stunned to see his fighting skills and thinks that he defeated them easily. Was he that strong? And he hasn't even used his weapons. Just how strong is he? But Sohan is still standing and the captain while looking at him is thinking that I thought I'd be able to take the Lunar Dusk Pavilion easily. Where the hell did such a martial master comes from? He is standing there cross-armed still pondering about what happened a few moments ago when Sohan asks him that fatty not coming. Sohan is calling him for a fight but he smirks and says arrogant bastard and with this he takes his huge weapon asking that where the hell are you from? You seem pretty strong. What do you want? Then Sohan replies the revolving blood clan. The fatty is angry at his answer and asks what? Sohan continues saying that everything that the revolving blood clan has. Meanwhile captain at hearing this is wondering that he has a grudge with us. The captain replies with full confidence that it seems that you should really be talking to the revolving blood clan leader. Let's do this then I'll report this back to the clan leader and get him to come here. How's that? Sohan smiles gently and asks him that do I look like I'm someone who'd listen immediately and after listening this the captain is thinking that I don't have a choice but to take care of him then. He raises his weapon and says in that case it seems the negotiations have broken down and Sohan replies that I had no intentions of negotiations with you guys anyways and after hearing his answer the captain gets extremely angry and thinking that acting relaxed. Arrogant bastard. Thinking this he runs towards him with the intentions for attacking on him and says to him that same for me then and shouts. Sohan takes a dead body that was laying near and first lifts it up in the air then throws it towards him with full force using his special technique while the captain is thinking that I'll aim for the opening after it hits him and that dead body strikes him with full force and he falls on the ground and looking at Sohan he's wondering that this bastard he disappeared. He was looking at him but couldn't find him but then suddenly he attacks from other side on his face and kicks with foot on his face. Blood is coming out from his mouth and his face texture has been changed because of the poison in his unique martial techniques and those who are half dead are looking at him and Sayak is also shocked to see him but he is standing there with those purple eyes. All of them are lying on the floor and some are dead while some are in miserable condition and badly injured and their leader is also lying on the floor and his large weapon is also there and the blood is coming out of his head while Sohan is standing there looking at them with his purple eyes and one of them who is injured looks around at the dead bodies and leader and says to the other who is also injured that he took the captain down easily. Impossible. What the hell is with him? And then they looks at the Sohan who is also looking then with those bluish eyes and those who are alive are looking at him and some are confused and some are shocked and even though some are scared as well because of his powers and then Sohan says to Sayak that open the doors and he immediately says that yes troop leader then immediately goes and open the doors. Meanwhile that purple light again starts coming out from Sohan's body and then he says to those who are injured that bring they corpses along with you and get lost and those with the injured faces and the arms gets confused to hear this but Sohan continues saying that tell this to the revolving blood clan leader that if wants to go against me he'll have to come here himself and hearing this one of them looks at him with anger while the other says to him that yes sir and then Sohan leaving them there goes to the stage while those who are injured takes the bodies of those who are dead and also those who are injured and leaves that place saying hurry up and Sayak is looking them leaving and then Sohan takes a bottle of wine from the table and start pouring the drink in his glass. Meanwhile Sayak is looking at him and after a while says to him that troop leader please pour me a drink too and then Sohan while drinking looks at him and asks that what did you even do and his eyes get back to their normal color and Sayak smiles at his question and then replies to him that what else I closed the doors then I opened it again too and then Sohan also smiles and says to him that's true and then saying this he grabs a bottle of wine and starts pouring drink for him while Sayak is looking at him doing this and then he asks him that troop leader why did you spare a few of them and Sohan replies to his question that now that I've mocked them the clan leader ought to be infuriated and come looking for me and then Sayak looks at him with a little bit confusion and then saying I see he takes a glass of drink and starts drinking it. Meanwhile in his head he's thinking that this means he was actually sane when he picked a fight with the revolving blood clan and then Sohan while pouring another glass of drink for himself says to him that when all of the revolving blood clan come here I'll get dangerous for you two hide somewhere else and Sayak becomes stunned after hearing this and looks at him with a shocked face but Sohan continues drinking with patience and then Sayak becomes a little bit frightened and says to him that troop leader I'll pour you a drink. The revolving blood clan leader is sitting on a chair and is holding a sword in his hand and others are standing in two rows and are facing each other and then the leader says to them that you guys handed yourselves in this state yet you don't know who did this to us and one of them replies to him that based on what we heard from the surviving Razor Wind squad members it seems he has an enmity with us. Then hearing this the leader gets angry and says to him that are you being serious? We have tons of enemies everywhere but he after hearing this gets offended while the clan leaders orders him saying that gather everyone that's able to wield a sword and one of them asks that all of them and then he replies that yeah after what he did to us we need to show him who's boss. If we look weak now then others will come after us too and he immediately replies that understood. Then the clan leader continues saying that before we leave tie up those